waiting. I cut grass throughout the city. The county auditor, that letter ready to be sent out. There were only 5 of them.
Yeah.
We had on some.
Is Clarendon Drive, is that in the state?
That, I don't think it is. From what I've gathered,
That property's been a mess for
it's been not too
a long time.
long.
It's owner occupied?
No, the guy that lived there passed away and he left it to his kids, I think.
Right, so it was in
They
the
don't
state.
have anything to do with it.
Oh, so it wasn't the state, but they just, the Rando property, I remember. it. Long time, ago. Okay.
Okay.
So the bank, so there's no lien on it, other than what we're.
What triggers the getting mowed like this? Is it complaints or just something that you drive out and observe it? Or?
It's the grass, it's by code, grass is taller than 8 inches. And then a violation letter can be sent. They get a certain amount of time to respond to the letter, and if they don't, then we just go ahead and cut it. Or,
Is it something you aggressively pursue or?
yeah, complaints come in and we go around, we see.
Okay, so
We'll write a letter.
everybody sees.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's, the second item, I am in the process of putting together a grant application for OPWC money, Public Works Commission. The mayor and I have met to discuss the funding that we'd like to get through that grant. So based on the current engineer's estimate and us being awarded, if we get the grant money, the total project would be $533,500. LCAS has $323,000 set aside for the project for our use, and then we're going to request the remaining $210,500 from OPWC. So if we get the full grant amount, there won't be any expense out of our pocket based on that engineer that's so.
What's the likelihood of this occurring?
Depends on how many other grant requests come in and the strength of them. I mean, it's totally points-based graded, right?
The deadline is October 3rd, I think, first Friday.
Yeah, first Friday of October. There's, you may recall, Jeff, we're also submitting an OPWC loan application request to help with part of the funding for the new water tank on the east side of town. When you do that, even though Hopewell Drive is a grant request, and the other one is a loan request, and they are two entirely separate pots of money, we do have to prioritize for OPWC which one we, are putting first and which one we're putting second. The Hopewell Drive one we are putting first, so the maximum number of points possible for that prioritization are going to go to the grant request for Hopewell Drive. When you consider the volume of traffic that Hopewell gets, there are a number of points where we feel as though it will score well, but it really is, it'd be nothing more than pure speculation to talk about the likelihood of getting it or not. It's going to depend on what other grant requests come in and the quality of those submissions.
The third item, the 2017-2040 transportation plan. That's basically a planning document that LCAS uses to set money aside every year. They plan out however many years that is, 20, 30, 40 years. It's set in stone right now for 2016-2019. So I'm going to be putting some projects in for submission on that 2040, and as the closer. We do it 4 years at a time, where we lock the projects in. So it's basically just a planning tool that we'll be using. That money can be used on roadways that are in the federal aid route system. And this past year, we were able to designate some new roadways within the federal aid route system. So one that was included was Lincoln View Drive. We did put Connector Road on there, and then we had to take Heath Road off because you're only allotted a certain number of lane miles or center line miles to be on there. So we had to give and take a few to get some other roadways that we felt would be more beneficial to us to get federal aid money for. So that's what I'm going to be doing. That's actually due at the end of this month as well. So just give you guys an update on that.
Eddie, are you aware, and you may not be aware, I'm just asking. When we talk about the potential improvement along the Thornwood Drive corridor, the connector road is seen as the logical southern terminus of that corridor. I'm assuming that State Route 16 is on the federal aid route, right? Okay. So then we would have the southern part of that corridor then on the federal aid route. Having the northern endpoint and the southern endpoint on the federal aid routes, would that in any way in the future perhaps assist in other funding mechanisms for improving Thornwood Drive between the two?
The only one I know for sure is just LPAS.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's any other possibility out there that I haven't come across.
Okay. Okay.
Any more questions?
The final item, I think I told you guys about the grant application that we applied for CDBG money up on Green Valley Drive. A couple weeks back, Sue Spiker had informed me that we did get that grant, and the total that they gave us was $186,800. That'll go towards repaving the roadway, doing some base repair in certain spots, putting new curb and gutter in all the way up and down the road, and then putting new additional drainage and replacing the existing drainage along that roadway to improve it. So
Eddie, do we have a ballpark figure on what the total project might cost?
the estimate that I had was right around 260.
260?
Now, Sue hasn't given me the details on what's actually being funded, because this $186,800 is from one pot of CDBG money. It was the critical infrastructure pot, and there's actually another general pot that when somebody gets funded out of that initial pot, they take some money from the other pot and just put it towards it. So the last time I talked to her, we were probably going to owe, based on that estimate, $40,000 to $50,000. If she's going to put a little extra on top of this, maybe 16.
There'd be more, a little more added to it,
Yeah, a lot.
the grant? Oh, okay.
They just want to see moving that money and spending it on other projects that are going.
This Green Valley Drive grant, although it began prior to John Groff's retirement, this has been Eddie's baby from the start. Eddie, I don't know that John had much of anything at all to do with rest of that, I think it was pretty much all you, right?
You and Jenna did a good job of getting those figures together on, and getting the people to, buy into giving you the information, which was a big thing.
They saw some things that you probably wouldn't imagine you'd see.
I can believe it. Hey, I knocked on many doors over there, and I seen quite a few things too.
Complaining about that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can believe it, Chief.
You can't unsee certain things.
Unbelievable.
Mark, did you have, that was in what Eddie had presentation, did anybody have any questions for Eddie?
Yeah, I'd asked Dan Evers, the Economic Development Director for Grow Licking County, to stop by and, he periodically will come by and give us an update on how things are going with that organization, the results that we're seeing in Licking County, the work of Grow Licking County relative specifically to the city of Heath. So I asked Dan to come by and give us an update, let us know what we're doing that's working, let us know where we can improve and that kind of stuff. So Dan, I'll go ahead and just turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Couple things, and thank you all. Thank you. I got it. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you all again, and thanks for your continued support of the organization and of our efforts. I think I said this last time we were all together. I hope I said it last time, but the staff that you all have here is outstanding and makes my job a lot easier. Eddie and John in particular, and John Crosby for Eddie, are three of the most responsive people in our entire county network. If I need anything, these guys are right on it. And that means a great deal because we do not always have a lot of time to respond to some of these inquiries, and we don't often get second chances. So if we don't have the information, if it's not accurate, we're out of the game. And these guys really do a great job, and I know that when we get something from Eddie or we get something from John, that we don't have to cross our fingers that it's accurate, or that it's complete. That makes a world of difference. A couple things for you and kind of an overview of some of the things that we've been doing. I don't know if you have seen this before, but we advertised earlier this year in Columbus Business First, had an 8-page insert that was inserted right into the magazine, went to their entire readership. We had an overprint done as well, and we are putting that in the hands of prospects quite literally around the world who are either visiting our community or who we're responding to through our various marketing and networking channels. Some of our outreach, Mayor and I, as I'm sure you're aware, went to Chicago a couple of months ago, called on site selection consultants and real estate brokers in the Chicagoland area. This is one of the pieces that we took with us up there, as well as a leave behind. And we think it tells a pretty good story pretty quickly about the county as a whole, about our economic development efforts. Piece on the back is an ad, a variation of an ad that we run in 3 domestic and 3 international site selection and trade publications right now. And there are electronic versions of it on websites of those various site selection magazines and publications. Those partnerships are generating direct leads to us from trade show activity that those publications have staffed. A variety of trade shows for different industries. Our material is there, and in fact, in one of the trade shows, we sent out about 100 of these magazines to our rep, and she distributed them. She walked the floor for us and distributed them to a lot of the exhibitors there, and generated a direct lead out of that show very recently. Just quick overview. Right now, when we look at our leads, and it makes me very happy every time I've been here, the number gets bigger as a percent of the number of opportunities as well as the percentage of them that are manufacturing. Right now, well, as of late July, we had about 93 potential opportunities. That number's going to shift a little bit. Haven't done the September numbers yet. But it's a lot of active prospects, 93 prospects that are still in some stage of considering the community as a whole. And that several of those we've been out there for a year or more with several of these leads. But they come back around. We just responded to someone that we first heard from almost a year ago. We first responded to, and then we just got an inquiry 3 weeks ago to say, need you to update. Jobs Ohio folks said, we need to confirm that this stuff is still available. So, there is no rhyme or reason to how long some of these stay out in the weeds, but when we call to check on the status, they're still active, nobody's been eliminated. We are seeing pretty consistent, look along one of the charts along the back of the activity over the last 3 months, and we're consistently seeing on average, between 4 and 6 leads a month come in from outside sources. Happily, we are able to respond to over 80% of the inquiries we get from our outside sources. Typically, the ones to which we cannot respond, reasons for that overwhelmingly the reasons for that is there's something unique about a facility. It's just a facility search, not a site search, and they will want, say, 300,000 square feet. One wanted 300,000 square feet. We had another one that wanted a minimum of 32-foot high ceilings, which just seldom exist in nature. If you got one, you go to the short list pretty quickly, but most places don't. 67% of our leads right now, out of those 93, are manufacturing. I think the first time I came and sat with you all 30 years ago, that number was about 53%. So we've seen real nice steady growth in the last 3 years in high-end, high-value prospects.
For the 93 leads, how many are focused on Heath? Give the percentage.
I would say the percentage is about 60.
60?
About 60% of these had Heath sites or facilities since April of this year. We've responded to 10 prospects with Heath locations. That's about 18. We responded to 10 with, and of that 18, 3 we did not respond at all, so 15. And of 15 we've had 10, yes. And of those 10 leads, 13 locations in Heath. So on several leads we responded with multiple sites or facilities within the community. And in some cases, both sites and facilities, depending on what the general request was. The responses, the prospects have been looking anywhere from 20,000 square feet to 200,000 square feet to 100 acres. And a range of potential job opportunities goes from 40 to over 100 of those 10 leads.
Just as a matter of convenience, you might want to consider relocating your office out this way.
The mayor and I talked a little too much. I think both of our productivities would dip at that. So our activity is, countywide, our activity is strong. It really is heavily anchored in Heath. I think, I'm not telling you all anything that you don't know, but we have some beautiful sites here. We've got some aggressive developers, we've got some creativity. I think that the partnership between the city and Southgate and the Port Authority to build International Drive and open up those sites is going to pay dividends, not just with Port's spec building, but those are attractive sites, and they're the right size, and they're sufficiently flexible that if we needed to bundle 2 sites together instead of having 7 sites there, we have 5, which is a large site. So we have the capacity to do that. And the product in the park is a huge benefit when we have shown clients sites to be able to say, well, yeah, this building was built on spec, and Experian's in here now. This building was built on spec, and Ariel's coming to town now, so we're building the same building. And interestingly, Southgate, with the new spec building that's coming up across from Experian, it's going to have a higher roof line than the previous buildings. I think Eddie, you might know this better than me, but I think it's going to be a 26 or a 28-foot ceiling, and typically they've been 24s. Does that sound right?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I know it's higher. I know the ceiling height on this one is going to be higher than the ceiling height was on the Experian. Can't remember if it's 2 feet higher or 4 feet higher.
Yeah, and I know they kicked around both, but that is also kind of a response to the market and what we're seeing with folks. They'll say, well, 24 will work, but boy, 26 would be ideal. And so I think that opens up, that opens that up a little more. Assuming they'll take more. So, well, we only need 22 feet. Okay, well, will you take 26? Well, yeah, we'll take 26. But if they need 26, they won't take 22. And I think that building's going to jump. And then we're on to the next one.
And you mentioned International Drive, and it might be a good opportunity to introduce a thought to council. You and I have talked in the past about the opportunity would be out there if we chose to divert income tax revenue from businesses along International Drive to the water and wastewater funds where the payment for the water and wastewater lines is coming from. Divert tax revenue into those funds for a period of time until those investments, those costs have been recouped.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, from a 20,000 foot level, how, those types of ordinances and things are structured?
Okay. It's functional equivalent of making a little bit extra mortgage payment and putting a little extra on your mortgage every month. in order to, and the concept is, in order to retire that debt or recover the expenditure, you find an alternate source of revenue beyond just the user fees and the rates. Council could, and David's gonna be your, God bless you, David's gonna be your how-to guy, but the concept is that council could pass a resolution of ordinance that designates for X period of years, and I'm just arbitrarily choosing a number, 10% of revenue derived from income tax associated with development on these 7 lots would be directed toward the water and sewer fund until such time as all or a percentage, you know, and you have that flexibility. You say, okay, well, we're gonna do this for 10 years or until 100% of the debt associated with the International Drive and water and sewer improvements is paid off, or until 60% of it's paid off, and then we'll let the rates take care of the rest. And the concept is you're gonna generate income tax faster than you're gonna generate water and sewer revenue, or at a higher volume, no pun intended. So, again, the theory is we made this investment in order to enable job creation. So let's utilize the job creation to help recoup this investment. Maybe do it again somewhere else if we need to, or we at least have the luxury of choice at that point. We don't say if, you know, there might be other acreage around that needs infrastructure in the not too distant future, and it gives council the flexibility to fully consider what that investment might look like and not say, oh yeah, well, we can't do anything over here until this thing pays out. You're just creating another revenue source, and it's internal. You know, the revenue's coming. Jay's counting the dollars anyway. It's just where we're going to put them, for how long, or until what threshold. Until we hit a certain threshold, whether it's 100%, 50%, 12%, or whatever feels like the right number based on anticipated revenue from to the water and sewer fund.
It's,
So
obviously,
kind of where you want me to go?
exactly, yeah, exactly. It's obviously early in the game. I mean, the work out there hasn't even been completed yet. We don't know, I mean, we know what our costs are capped at for the installation of the sewer, the installation of the water. But we don't know, you know, it may come in less than that. So we don't know exactly what the dollar figures are. But, you know, we know that out of the water fund and out of the wastewater fund, you know, that's where the money came from for the installation of those two. And so, now this would be a mechanism that would allow us to be able to replenish those funds faster. Now, how much faster? We don't know. It would depend on the speed at which those lots are filled up with businesses. It would depend on the number of people who are employed. It would depend on the amount of profit tax that they would make, or whether or not they'd even have to pay any, based on House Bill 5. Whether or not they're a heavy water or wastewater user. You know, if we've got somebody out there that's a heavy utility user, well, John's probably going to channel more of that money into those funds and to replenish those anyway. So there's a number of different factors that, you know, would have to be analyzed and looked at. But
And
You know, it's a concept that Dan and I have talked about before, but I don't think I've ever talked with you guys about in the past, because it's, you know, that's like 50 miles down the road still, but we're going to get there
Mhm.
at some point, and so it would be, you know, Dan, I just wanted you to share some information as to introduce that concept, so that when, you know, when we get 50 miles down the road and we start to talk about it, there's a basic level of understanding
Right.
of what would be, what the purpose would be, and what the benefit would be, and what the, you know, what the trade-off is, and that kind of deal.
And it's kind of, from my perspective, it's kind of a revenue neutral as well. For example, the 20,000 square foot spec building that the port is constructing, expandable to 40,000 square feet. So we could get a early stage manufacturing company in there. Eventually takes that building to 45,000 square feet, and could be a substantial water generator or water user, wastewater generator. And so it starts to pay a proportionate share of the infrastructure. Conversely, we have put that particular building in front of a couple of technology-enabled companies that may not, you know, they may not have a whole lot more than domestic use on either side of the spigot. But they can have huge dollars. They could be a huge income tax user or generator. And if you're counting on them to pay whatever the proportional share is from the water, just out of usage fees, you can wait a long time. But you have the opportunity to offset. Well, you know, we never thought you'd have 20 guys in there making $100,000 a year. Hypothetically, you know, that could. I hate to call it found money because it's intellectually lazy, but so am I. Right, yeah, exactly, yeah, right. But it could be, it gives you, as I said before, it gives you luxury of choice, it gives you the opportunity for creativity, and it kind of safeguards a little bit against, you don't, then as a community, you don't start looking at projects and saying, well, yeah, I'd rather have fewer employees and more flushes, or I'd rather have somebody that just does processing, not has high value management jobs. It's a choice you don't want to have to make, really. And then in that respect, you don't have to.
Talk a little bit, Dan, if you would, about what you see, what you vision happening in the future. You know, I think it's safe to say in central Licking County, when you look at sites available in the manufacturing sector, we've got that's our sweet spot here in Heath.
Absolutely.
And we've seen manufacturing projects come to Licking County, come to Heath, come to Ohio in general in the past couple of years or so. Do you think that trend in that sweet spot is going to continue? Or are there areas that you think are going to expand other than manufacturing that we are not at this time suited to be able to handle as well as other areas?
First, the answer to the first part of the question is yes. I think manufacturing is going to continue. I think we're going to continue to see manufacturing leads at a relatively consistent level for at least 3 years. And I think there are a number of reasons for that, one of which is I still believe, and more importantly, that people a lot smarter than me are continuing to say that there's a lot of pent-up demand. There are still folks who are getting back into expanding manufacturing. There are companies that, when the recession hit, just conserved capital. They haven't all come back into the market yet. They haven't all said, okay, that expansion we thought about doing 7 years ago, now's the time to do it. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Sometimes they diversified, sometimes they just want to double check, or we're doing fine and we want to we want to diversify our portfolio of clients just a little bit more before we undertake the expansion. And there's solid growth. I think that's part of it. I think instability in Europe and to a lesser degree Asia is going to continue to create opportunities like Experian here. We are seeing through 2020 in Jobs Ohio, almost 50% of the current pipeline of projects is international. Seeing lately a surprising number from Great Britain and East Central Europe. Forever, Asia led that. International leads were mostly, the question was, well, where in Asia are they emanating from? But we're seeing more of it throughout Europe now, as well as, Asia continues to be strong. So I think those factors are going to continue to have significant manufacturing activity for at least 3.5 years. If I had to pick a number, whether if it's 4.5,
Which is about as far out as anybody can project anything.
Right, exactly. I mean, if it was 4.5 years, I wouldn't be surprised. If it was less than 3, I'd be dumbfounded. I think something cataclysmic would have to happen for it to be less than 3. But I think there are really kind of two parallel but lower volume trends as well, opportunities. Data centers. We have seen, we've seen 4 data center prospects in the last 8 months, which is a lot. They had run a little cold on Ohio for a while. Our friends at Amazon changed that thinking in terms of data centers and the viability of them in Ohio. So I think we'll continue, we as a state and Central Ohio will continue to see some data center activity for a while. Those are hard nuts to crack. From a site perspective, you have to have 100 acres. It has to be flat, shovel ready. They don't like to be near railroads.
Near what?
Rail lines.
They do not.
They do not at all.
Why?
Because 2 reasons tied to the same thing. The train goes off the track. They're just seismically sensitive, so the boom that comes when the train goes off the track can knock servers. Just a little server disruption, and they're done. The second is the air handling systems, because they cool. Data centers cool with water. They're huge water users. They cool with water and ambient air, the pull air in. So if something goes off the track that is gaseous, they're shut down. Send somebody with duct tape up there and close everything up. And so what, rail lines are a challenge, they want to be within at least a mile of a rail line if you can avoid it.
All of our big block tracts of land are very near rail lines.
Correct. So I think that's now, the flip side of that is data centers are high dollar, low employer comparatively for a 100-acre site. When you look at a 100-acre site, think about what you can generally get. A couple of these leads I was talking about, 100 jobs, 200 jobs on a 100 to 150 acre site. Data center might be 50, might be, and that includes contractors. Now, the muy bueno monies,
Yeah.
but also fairly narrowly focused. So when we start talking about the breadth of economic opportunity, not so much. Then kind of the space right in between those two is technology and technology enabled companies like the Chroma Cares and folks who are already contracting with Boeing and who are already in that that space, engineering related R&D kinds of users. And we're seeing growth in that arena as well. Some of it even tied to automotive. The R&D side, Goodyear is a prominent example, but there are other smaller companies, and again, they're both domestic and international. They tend to be, depending on where they are in the tech, how far along they are in the applied side of the technology. It can be a pretty reasonable job generator. They tend not to be huge. They don't need huge tracts of land. Google that one later.
Okay.
But they are geographically efficient. They don't need a lot of acreage. They don't generally need large buildings to start, but they have the potential to grow. They're the perfect companies for the 20,000 spec building because it suits them from day one, and they could grow to 40, depending on the diversification, the commercialization of some of the things they're researching, and then just the diversification of, okay, we get this thing that works. It's been working over here for Boeing, and we've got some opportunities down in Wright Pat to do some work there too. We're going to double in size. I mean, I think here, the community's really well situated for that. Really well situated for that. The other thing the other thing we see kind of incidentally in here, and if you look at the kind of the prospects by type, we see a little bit of back office in that data center piece and some semi-regional office, not headquarters, but regional offices. They all say they'll look outside the region or outside of the Beltway, but I mean they mean like Easton, not outside the Beltway. Maybe as far as New Albany. For some of those, we're just not. There's a density. That's more of a time factor than it is a geography factor. The growth is going to have to come more. For those second, and I don't want to call them second tier, but non-headquarters regional operations centers. I think there's opportunity here for that, but not in the short term. There just has to be some build out before that happens.
Anybody have any other questions or anything for Dan, or any other information that you want from him?
Dan, just
when this first started, needless to say, I was a little concerned of where the priorities and how Heath would be left behind or what, and I've just been real happy with the results and how it's been for Heath.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. It has been, you know, when it first started, I was a little concerned about all kinds of things. As I told Sherry, this is why I rent. This is a wonderful community. The whole county is a wonderful community. I'm amazed by this place every day. And you have, as a city, as an organization, I'll finish where I started. You guys make it easy. And that's important because there are places, and there are not many of them, which is one of the most remarkable things about this place as a whole. You know, there are some places that would kill to have the geography and the available land and buildings that Heath has, but they just can't. They're landlocked, they're a little more mature communities and the opportunities to build them like that. And there are other places that probably have those opportunities, and they intellectually squander them, for lack of a better term. And that's very few, and that's very limited here, which is remarkable and gratifying. But this community has the best of both worlds, and that's not accidental. And this is anecdotal, and I have told this story 100 times. Well, it's me, so I'm gonna tell it 101. When Experion was looking, if I've told you all this last year, stop me, or give it a go. When Experion was looking in Licking County, working with Jobs Ohio, working with Columbus 2020, they were looking for an existing building. They had a consulting team out of South Carolina. Period. We want an existing building because we got a timeline. We get this. We get that. We showed them Southgate's, what was then called building number 49, down in Heath. Heber. I'm sorry, I said Heath, didn't I? Down in Heber. Well, that's where the story ends. So they're going through the building the second time. We've got 2 people from Jobs Ohio. We got 2 people from Columbus 2020. We got 2 consultants from South Carolina. Got 3 guys from what we did not at that point know to be Experion. We're walking around, and the guy who's the lead consultant used to do what I do down in the Carolinas. So we're chatting him up and trying to find a schmooze point. And he says, I got to tell you, you guys done a hell of a job here. They love this building. I think you're going to hear from us. So it's great. Whatever we can do. Trying to keep it. So they leave, and Robert and I are waving goodbye. I stand out in front of the building. This is so cool. They're excited. And Robert says, yeah, you remember those guys we met with like 3 months ago here when it was still under construction? I said, yeah. Well, whatever happened to them? So we had signed non-disclosure agreements. I never knew who they were either. He said, I'm supposed to get a letter from them, commitment letter to lease the building. So, well, when? Tomorrow. I said, I wish we could. He said, God, I wish there was a way for us to get both of these deals. And the mayor and I had been talking about, because we'd seen a fair amount of activity on that 50,000 square foot building, and the commitment letter was from Goodyear for the R&D center they have now. And the mayor had been talking to me a little bit about the activity down there, and he said, why can't we have one of those buildings? in Heath. You know, we could put it here, we could put it there, and we had been talking about some other projects and some other things kind of historically that had taken place in town. So Robert and I are standing there, and I said, well, let's just build him one. Let's build him another one. And he said, well, and he laughed. Jack, God rest his soul, was still active. And he said, you sound like Jack. That's what he says too. Well, he's right. Look at all these buildings he built. Let's build another one. He said, yeah, I know, but I'm not sure where we put it. He said, we've talked about that, and you know, we've got land in Etna, and I said, build it, Heath. And I'm not saying this to take credit for it, because he'd already thought about that. I mean, you know, I haven't had original thought in my life, and I've sure not taught Robert anything. But I said, so build it in Heath. And he said, well, why'd you say this? Because, you know, they want one, first of all. You know, they're ready for a spec building. You've got a relationship with Rick. You guys could do this, and we could do it quickly enough in Heath. So I don't know where else you're thinking about building, kind of did. But there's nowhere else in Lincoln County we're going to be able to build a building and meet their time frame. There is one place in this community we can do it. That's Heath, Ohio. So how about this? You call Rick, and I'll call the mayor. And if everybody says yes, you know, we'll call them both tomorrow. You know, we'll both call the client tomorrow. And we did. And it worked. And we had to give them this much paper plus to demonstrate that they could in fact be in this building when they wanted to. But they were convinced of it. And the guys at Columbus 2020 who had been working with them for quite a while, said to them, you can believe these guys. They will do this. And you did. And the whole reason for telling that story is thank you. I mean, it's very, very kind of you, your assessment, but thank you, because you can have all the assets in the world, but if you don't have the commitment behind them, it doesn't mean as much, for sure. And it's a joy. And we are very fortunate as a community to have a community and an organization that truly doesn't just understand collaboration, but lives it. And that makes all the difference in the world for us. And, you know, and as I said at the beginning, when I call Eddie, when I call John, when I call anybody in this building, I'm like, all right, good enough for me. It's, you know, they said yes, I'm putting it in this form and we're done. In fact, here, when we have to fill out detailed requests for information from clients, I'll just cut and paste the requisite sections and send them to these guys. I don't feel like I have to mask it or clarify it or anything else. Just boom. Which makes it, it's a great partnership. And you all, I am glad that you are pleased. I am extremely gratified that you are pleased. But you should also be very proud, because I think we have done some good things. I think we have represented the community well and fairly. But you know, all I'm really doing is holding a mirror up to you guys for people. So kudos to you.
Well, if we can all fit our heads through the door on the way out, does anybody else have anything for Dan? Dan, I appreciate you taking the time
It is
to
always my pleasure.
give us an update, and we appreciate your efforts in helping to secure the Experions and the Aerials and the companies that we haven't even thought of yet. that are gonna be coming, so thank you.
It's been fun. It's always fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let the love fest continue.
You still have your tree? You said you were renting, like I remember you have a tree that you brought with you.
I do. I still have it.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Cletus, anything else? Are we adjourned?
Yeah, 6:23, I stopped.
See you, Dan.
He told us that story before, but I wanted to hear it again.
He's our greatest cheerleader, isn't he?
Yeah.
One of them.